Hi, you guys. Today we're going to do 9.1 in our book. We talked a lot about scatter plots yesterday, and this is kind of just a summary of what we learned in our other things. So remember, a scatter plot is a graph that shows a relationship between two sets of data. The two sets of the data are graphed as an ordered pair in a coordinate plane. So interpreting a scatter plot, the scatter plot at the left shows the amount of fat in grams and the number of calories in 12 restaurant sandwiches. So it's really important that you read your labels and your title to know what it's telling you. How many calories are in the sandwich that contains 17 grams of fat? Draw a horizontal line from the point that has the x value of 17. It crosses the y-axis at 400, so 17 right here. Goes over, so 400, so the sandwich has 400 calories. How many grams of fat are in a sandwich that contains 600 calories? So calories are over here, or on this one. So you're going to find your 600 calories, and come here and then come down, and that tells us that it crosses the x-axis at 30, so there are 30 grams of fat in a 600 calorie sandwich. What tends to happen to the number of calories as the number of grams of fat increases? Looking at the graph, the plotted points go up from left to right. So the number of grams of fat increases and the number of calories increases. So on your own, turn a couple pages to the on your own blank sheets. A sandwich that has 650 calories based on the scatter plot in example 1, how many grams of fat would you expect the sandwich to have, and explain your reasoning. So please do that on the other page, and then you'll check your answer at the end. The next page, you do need to memorize these. A scatter plot can show that a relationship exists between two sets of data. A positive linear relationship, a point lies close to a line, and as the x increases, the y increases as well. A negative linear relationship is a point that when the points lie close to a line, and as the x increases, the y decreases. Okay, so it's going downward. A nonlinear relationship is if it's curved, okay, or in a shape other than a line. And no relationship at all is when they're all scattered apart, and we talked about those yesterday. Identifying relationship, describe the relationship between the data and identify any outliers. Okay, so hopefully you learned what an outlier was in Excel. So looking at television size and price, there's your television size in inches and your price in dollars. And on this one, age and number of pets owned. So here is the number of pets owned and the person's age in years. The points appear to lie close to a line, and as x increases, so is y. So the scatter plot shows a positive linear relationship. There is an outlier, okay, this one right here, at 70, and then probably about 2,250. A cluster is where they're grouped together. So there's a cluster at about $500, and a gap in the data is right here. So a gap goes from about $500 to about $1,500. So a gap is where you don't have any data. So that's a way to describe it, is using, excuse me, a way to describe it is to talk about its clusters, gaps, and outliers if there are any. If we were looking at this one, these are kind of randomly all over. So the scatter plot shows no relationship. There are no obvious outliers. There are no obvious gaps, and there are no obvious clusters. And it kind of makes it, when they're all over the place, you really don't see too much of that. So on your own, turn the page. You're going to kind of sketch a graph, plot the points on the graph, and then after you do that, you're going to describe the relationship using these terms up here, and then you're going to identify any outliers, gaps, or clusters. So go ahead and do that now, and then check your answer on the next page. Okay, so for the first one, you would have about 35 grams. The point just below y equals 650 has an x value that's just below x equals 35. The next one, part 2. Notice I just kind of quickly sketched my study time and my test scores, and then I put my points as they were on the table. This is a positive linear relationship. There is a gap. It looks like there's a little bit of a gap from 90 to 120. I don't know about that. And then there's an outlier at 120, 70. And there are no obvious clusters. You might say there's only 2 here. This kind of looks like a little bit of a cluster, but it means there's a whole bunch of them right next to each other. But this is what, using the book one, it's a little bit better because they're more spread apart. The lines are spread out more evenly. So there are several practices that you can be looking at in your book. So this would be a really good page to do, this one right here. And as you go through, there are lots of performance tasks that would be very good for you to go back and do. The answers to these are in class resources, and you can go check those answers if you want. Your assignment is to do the Big Ideas Online 9.1 by your next in-person class.